Hello and welcome to this video where we are going to take a look at another game by Gukesh played at the by now legendary, you could say, Olympiad in Chennai in 2022. In this game, Gukesh faced the leader of the Armenian team, Gabriel Sargissian. After Levon Aronian left Armenia, it was Gabriel Sargissian who took over the leadership position on the team, and the Armenian team continues to defy all expectations and always perform above their rating would suggest they are capable of, and as they seem to have this peculiar team spirit that makes all the players on the team stronger than their ELO rating would suggest. So it's always a big challenge facing the Armenian team, who always are very motivated when representing their country. But perhaps this sounds a bit familiar to you because as the last two Olympiads showed, the Indian team seems to be something similar in kind, even though the Indian team is of course very high rated. But when they play together, it seems that there is this very nice synergy, very nice atmosphere in the team, and this makes them even stronger. So in this game, where we will take a look at the game Gukesh Sargissian, we will see Gukesh facing the first board of Armenia, and we will see Gukesh in perhaps by now familiar fashion, being very aggressive from the start at the first opportunity. Given the first opportunity, he unbalances the position and then goes directly for an attack on the opponent's king. So after d4, d5, c4, e6, knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, Sargissian chose the Rogozin defense with bishop b4. Now it has to be said that Sargissian is a very classically oriented player. His repertoire shows these classical tendencies, and normally his usual choice here for black is the Queen's Gambit declined with bishop e7. Against e4, he always plays the Ruy Lopez, and always trying to keep the game in positional paths, and perhaps reflects his preferences for classical stand type of chess, let's say. But here he slightly deviates from his usual choice, going for the Rogozin with bishop b4, possibly intended to surprise the young leader of the Indian team. Now there are many ways for white to react to the Rogozin. Gukesh here chooses the move queen a4 check, which also attacks the bishop on b4, but don't worry, it's not that black blundered the piece, because knight c6 covers the check and defends the bishop on b4. Now the knight on c6 may look a bit awkward, but as we shall see, this is the key of the Rogozin defense, and the idea is that this knight actually supports the further e5 push, as we shall see soon enough. So e3, short castle, bishop d2, breaking the pin on the knight and continuing with the development. And now we can, with black's next move, we see the idea of the Rogozin defense. Without wasting any time and not even waiting for white to develop this bishop from f8, black immediately takes on c4. And after bishop c4, the bishop drops back to d6, and this is the whole point of the Rogozin defense. The knight on c6, bishop on d6 aid the e5 push, and in this way black solves the main problem of the basically all Queen's Gambit declined variations, which is the development of the light squared bishop. So by pushing e5, the bishop will no longer be a bad one, no longer be a limited bishop, as it can be freely developed along the h3 c8 diagonal. So queen c2 by Gukesh, e5, executing the idea of the Rogozin, d takes e5, knight takes e5, attacking the bishop on c4, bishop drops to e2, and now we arrive at the first interesting moment in the game. In this position, black could have continued simply with a move like c6, which is a good solid move covering the central squares d5, the b5 square, then possibly continuing with queen e7, rook e8, and so forth. and this would have been perfectly normal. But Sargissian's choice of knight f3, which may appear a bit premature, gives Gukesh a chance to show his aggressive intentions. And now bishop f3 would be a natural response, but Gukesh goes gf3. And already this kind of gives you an insight into his aggressive character when playing over the board, when playing chess, basically. A very nice guy when he's off the board, very pleasant, very polite, very cultured. But when you sit across the board, well, he'll give you no chances. He'll just destroy you if he can. And here we see this immediately. gf3, opening the g file and showing aggressive intentions from the start. Already acknowledging that the game will become sharp, Sargissian goes a6 and intends to start his own activity on the queen side with b5. Long castle, continuing with the intended plan, b5 and rook hg1. So you see how Gukesh immediately gave chose a direction where sharp play ensues. Yeah, he could have simply taken on f3 with the bishop, castle short, and nothing really would have happened. You could even say the game would have been perhaps boring. Yeah, but no, he's a very exciting player, as you can see, and this is revealed in the choices he makes when he has a chance. So he had a chance between a boring game, okay, or an exciting one, sharp one, and he chooses the exciting and sharp one with g takes f3. So in this position, it was also perfectly fine for black to go bishop b7 to develop the bishop on the long diagonal, but Sargissian decides to go b4 and speed up perhaps his queenside play. However, while possible, I again have the impression that this is a bit premature, because after knight e4, f takes e4, now we see that white's pawn from g2 made quite a career, taking first on f3 and then taking on e4. So from a flank pawn it became a centralized pawn on e4. And this pawn mass that white now has in the center, e4, e3, f2, is quite mobile. And white's plan is really simple. f4, e5, push away this bishop from d6, open the b1, h7 diagonal, and together with the open g file, create an attack against black's king. So, in short term at least, black needs to take care of this really straightforward plan for white, which can become very dangerous. And in spite of being quite natural and perhaps obvious, we will see that Sargissian, did not quite manage to deal with this really straightforward and direct plan. Already in this position, he had at his disposal, he had a kind of a typical defensive idea. Yeah, and that defensive idea is shown with the move queen h4. Now, why queen h4? Well, the defensive idea I referred to is can be described by that the defending side on a flank places his queen on that flank. In this case, the queen is placed on the king side, because the queen's presence nicely controls a lot of squares on that flank and limits the attacking possibilities of the opponent. So after, let's say, f4, intending e5, simply bishop e7. Yeah. And with a queen on h4, is not that simple to create threats on the king side. For example, the queen defends the h7 pawn, so e5, bishop d3 would not attack it. Yeah. And the queen is kind of annoying for white on the king side. So this would have been a nice defensive, let's say, ploy by black. Still, Sargissian did not go for that. He went queen e7. And after f4, white simply plays straightforwardly, really no complications here, just following the plan intending e5. Now he went for the move a5. If we compare, you could easily say that a5 is a bit slow, yeah, because white just wants to go e5, maybe bishop d3, double the rooks on the g file, and it appears so much faster. However, things were not simple anymore. Now, the natural move f6, which is the desirable move that black would like to make, as it intends to stop e5, while objectively being better than a5, required quite a bit of a calculation and understanding, well, very deep actually calculation by black to actually justify this move. So I will show you the line, And then you will understand why Sargissian was reluctant to go in this direction, because it's very dangerous. Black must find several very difficult moves to stay afloat. So let's see, e5, following through, yeah, f takes e5, bishop d3. So white sacrificed the pawn to open the diagonal and attack that pawn on h7. And now this is the best line for black, but look how dangerous it is. E takes f4, bishop h7 check, king h8, e takes f4, bishop takes f4, bishop takes f4, rook takes f4, rook d1, attacking the queen, and now it appears that black loses. Queen f7, bishop g6. Yeah, so how does black prevent mate? Now comes the first difficult move, bishop f5, counter-attacking, yeah, the queen and attacking the bishop on g6 and covering the 8th rank. But it still appears that black is losing. Take the queen on f7, take on c2 and bishop d5. Now double attack, the rook is attacked and the bishop is attacked. But black again survives, another difficult move, c6, counter-attack. Yeah, the bishop on c2 is hanging, but so is the bishop on d5, and the point being that bishop takes c6, rook c8, the rook escapes with tempo, and if the bishop moves, then the bishop on c2 is defended, and black survives. So again, this is like a 10-move long variation with some sub-variations along the way, far from easy to calculate, and okay, now probably understand why Sargissian decided not to go in here. Perhaps he was worried that maybe he missed something, or maybe something he didn't like. So that must have been the reason why after f4 he went for the move a5. But now after e5, white's attack is really going very fast. Bishop c5, and now a nice move, rook g5. Yeah. The idea of the move is to control the 5th rank, and this stops the move f6, because f6 now, after e takes f6, we see a double attack on the bishop on c5, and white is winning. So Sargissian went bishop a6, rook dg1, threatening attack on g7, kept threatening rook g7, g6 the only move to defend, bishop takes a6, rook takes a6 and f5. So see how quickly and how not wasting a single move that white develops his attack. Very aggressive play, very straightforward, very determined played in following up with the attack. However, it has to be said that objectively black holds. So black is not lost by all means. But the problem in practice, when you're faced with this type of a player who is very determined, very confident, just very aggressive going at you, is that even though the position objectively may be fine, it's very hard to play against this type of pressure that the opponent is imposing. Yeah, both on the board with this type of aggressive moves, but also psychologically. So you see this face, very stern, this look, very determined, looking at you with steely eyes. It's not very pleasant to play against this type of an opponent. And therefore, it's not a surprise that the opponents facing this type of an opponent, they more often than not, they crack. This has happened with all the great champions, Carlsen, I don't know, Kasparov, Karpov, Fischer, like take anybody, yeah? These great players who were just radiating with this aggressive energy at the board. So in this position, for example, Sargissian again makes a suboptimal move. He plays bishop a7. The idea is to remove the bishop from the attacked position, because after f5 that there is this threat of f6 attacking the queen, and the queen can no longer defend the bishop. But it was better to go rook c6 to attack the bishop, to defend the bishop with the rook. And even though the rook is pinned, now the bishop cannot move because the rook will be lost, it still introduces some unpleasant moments for white, because both the king and the queen are lined up on the c file. So after king b1, black should just calmly play rook d8, activating the rook. And this also has a tactical justification, because the opening of the king side after e6, f takes e6, f takes g6, black can play h6 and keep the g file closed. And as we shall see a bit later, compared to the game, without a rook on f8, white doesn't have the move g7 at hitting that rook on f8 at his disposal. And after, let's say, the rook retreats to g2, queen f6, the position remains very unclear. Obviously, the black king is pretty safe, yeah, with the closed g file. The bishop on d2 is pretty passive, yeah, it doesn't really have many active possibilities, and black is pretty much still in the game. So that was better, but Sargissian went bishop a7, yeah, and now e6. Gukesh is very aggressive, just again not stopping for a minute. The engine suggests that king b1 was probably stronger, but you can't really say that, okay, e6 is a bad move or anything. And in this position, again, faced with this very aggressive play, this attacking mindset, yeah, Sargissian commits the decisive error. Now, the only move again to stay in the game was to allow the opening of the king side with f takes e6, f takes g6, h6. But okay, compared with the previous line, the rook is on f8, and white has this move g7 at his disposal, attacking the rook. But after h takes g5, g takes f8, queen, king takes f8, and h4, again a very strong move, still intending to open the g file. White obviously has a strong initiative, but black is not lost as he is in the game. It's tough, but still black can play. In the game, after king h8, this allowed Gukesh to show his combinational vision, tactical talent, yeah, to execute a very pretty combination. So he starts with king b1, getting away from problems on the c file, and after gf5, he plays the very beautiful combination, bishop takes b4. Now you would expect what everything is happening on the king side. So what is this bishop b4 doing? Just giving up the bishop, but it's a very pretty clearance combination because it frees the second rank for the queen. So the bishop on d2 was blocking the queen's access to the g2 square, tripling on the g file and threatening mate on g8. And thanks to this combination, white wins material. So Sargissian tried to stay in the game, queen takes b4, queen g2, threatening mate on g8, and now queen e4 check. Now this does manage to exchange queens, but Gukesh calculated that even after the exchange, queen takes e4, f takes e4, and e7 is the key of the combination. Now the rook must move, rook e8 and rook g8. Now we have the second part of the combination, which is promotion. Yeah. White sacrifices a rook, rook g8, but exchanges the blockading piece in front of the pawn, and then the pawn promotes. So rook g8, king g8, and e8 queen. And this is easily winning for white because the queen is too strong. It simply picks up a lot of pawns. King g7, queen e5 check, rook f6, queen g5 check, rook g6, queen a5. So the first pawn falls. The bishop is attacked. Black's problem is that taking on e3 runs into queen c3 check and the bishop is lost. So he can't take that pawn. So after queen a5, he went rook g1 check, king c2, rook g2, king b3. And now bishop b6. Again, bishop e3, queen c3 drops the bishop. But now a series of more checks. Queen e5 check, king f8, queen h8, king e7, queen h7. Picking up a second pawn and still threatening to take on e4 with check. Again, bishop e3, queen e4 picks up the bishop. And at the same time, the queen from h7 also defends the pawn on h2. So Sargissian went rook e2, but now another check, queen e4 check, king f8 and queen b4 forced black to resign simply because he loses the rook. If the king goes to the e file on e8, there is queen b5 check and the rook is lost. Or if the king goes to the g file, king g8, queen g4 check and the rook on e2 is lost. Quite a precise execution, yeah, and showing us the power of the queen in these positions where there are a lot of weaknesses and pawns to pick up with checks and double attacks as aids, yeah, to the queen's power. So a pretty nice game, showing us the attacking mindset, you could say, this psychological readiness to attack from the get-go, and also, as we saw at the beginning, choosing options which offer sharp play and possibilities for an attack. And as we have seen, the execution of the attack was very aggressive, very straightforward, and this pressure that Gukesh imposed on his, we have to say, experienced opponent was too much for the opponent to handle, and he cracked under this pressure. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Very nice attacking game, and another convincing game by Gukesh. So thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.